Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday, and it's October 24th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and you can see we're still trending higher here. Looks like we had a big rally on Friday. I didn't really look at this day how it looks, but on this chart it looks pretty looks like we opened, traded lower, then turned up and trended higher for the day. So nice rally on Friday it appears. Or actually this Thursday and Friday. So I missed the 2 days of rally, it looks like. So no, that's right. This is Monday here. We've already opened into the next day here. So yes, this was Friday. So it looks like Thursday we traded down some more than Friday, and then today, and then this is we've already in tomorrow. So we're in the overnight trading for tomorrow now. So still moving higher. So we'll see where we go from here. This is encouraging for a bounce. How high we're going to bounce is yet to be seen. Even though this looks really somewhat bullish here, it's kind of a turnaround day. When we go to the other chart, it's mostly a range day. Although we did trend up the latter part of the day. So the fact that it looks more rangy on the intraday chart, um, it's not so promising. But we'll see what tomorrow brings. I mean, we may continue to trade. We're getting towards overbought territory, so wouldn't surprise me if it turns down. I thought we might close. I mean, at one time like we were going to test this midline and turn down, but it didn't happen. So we'll see if it when it comes back, if it comes back to test this side, if it'll hold and go higher, or if it'll just turn back down. So we're yet to see. So anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart and show you what the chart looks like today. And like I said, it looks mostly like a range day. And here it is. You can see the overnight lows were here, overnight highs were here, and we broke outside that temporarily late in the afternoon, came back down, and we actually closed back inside that, although we've traded outside of that overnight high now. So what's going on now really doesn't play a whole lot of bearing on it, but for the most part, we closed back inside the range. Now, we did get a bigger leg up than we got back down. Notice how we didn't get to the lows. So once you saw that, I would take this, measure this first move and then look for a possible measured move. And you can see we got really, really close. We didn't quite get there. So um, didn't quite get a measured move. But that would have been my target if we got outside this range. And you can see we got really close. But once it got into 230 and starts trending back down, just exit and take your profit there. So if you've got something going on up here, that is. I like to be done before noon, I'll be honest with you. I enjoy the morning trading. We actually had a conversation about that in the forum today about it seems easier to trade in the morning with less fake outs and traps and things. And I wouldn't say that it's easier and there's less traps, but the price action does seem to be better, more structured or structured better. I'm trying to think of the right word there. But the structure of the market seems more straightforward. Maybe that's how I could put it to me. And that's just, I don't have any numbers or anything to back that up. This is based on experience, and it could be a mental thing with me. So, as I said in the forum, if you know anybody, if you're one of those number cruncher kind of guys and you like crunching numbers or whatever, crunch the numbers and see what you come up with, and see what you got. I mean, maybe you can find some proof of it, but it may just be a mental thing for me. I'm not sure. So anyway, we'll zoom in here and go through the trades, and we'll wrap today up. I'm a little behind due to being off the last couple of days, so it'll take me a couple of days to catch up. I'm already close to being caught up on email. I appreciate people holding their emails while I'm out on vacation. It makes it much easier when I come back to get caught up. I've read a few things in the forum, but I've got probably another half day to get caught up. So by Wednesday, I should be back on track. But anyway, 7 o'clock came just as we're kind of making these two legs down, and we tried to go higher on that second entry, and then try to go higher one more time, and you get that little bit of a trap. I like that on Normally you want a failure to be underneath, but when you try to go higher twice real quick like that and confirm that trend line, you've got enough room back to here. I like taking that trade as a failure, failed second entry. It's not a reversal necessarily, but it's a failure that'll probably at least come back to the EMA, and it may turn out to be a reversal that goes the other way. But generally, you want that reversal, that third touch, to be underneath the EMA if you're going short and above it if you're going long. So before somebody asks me about it, the reason is this. It's a trap when it went higher right there and that trend line holds again and you're that far away from the EMA. If you've got room to scalp out, take it. Maybe you get lucky and you get more, and you would have on this. You'd have got a big move out of this. That might have been the only trade you needed today. So I mean, if you look at it, if you catch a runner there, if you just go to the first bar breaks higher, which I think is right there, there's 10 points or so anyway. So that would have been a nice trade. And then, of course, it bounces. You get your close outside. It goes a little higher, thinking maybe we're going to retest the high on this green, but it makes another leg down. And there's actually, I didn't measure them, see how close they were to measured leg, but there's actually 2 legs down. And you can see we didn't quite get a measured. We bounced off the midline, and that's an indication we're probably going to go higher. So there it is. But this runs up, you get a close outside. It tried to go higher a few times and can't. And notice you got a new high. You try to go higher once. You drop down. It's also a breakout pullback short, but it's a failed second entry long. And so I like going short there on another failure. Again, this one is more of a reversal type. So now you're thinking we're going to test this low at a minimum, and we may get a measured leg down. We may get a 2-legged correction here. And you don't get a measured leg, but you get 2 legs of correction. And then it bounces right off the midline. You get a first entry, it pushes through, pulls back. Now that's what a reversal looks like. You're above the EMA, it pulls back and tests it. Failed second entry short if it goes higher, and that's a reversal type pattern as well, because this has had a break, moved to a new low, and now we got a new trend working up, most likely. And again, if you just catch that one, that might be all you need for the day. If you just go to the first break lower, it's 9.5 points. But if you just go to, you get a close outside. And then usually what I'll do is I want to close outside and then a break below that. So that would be up here. And so there's you 17 points or $850 on just one contract, one runner. So those runners really pay off. But anyway, you get the close outside, new high, and you get a lower high. I didn't mark this. That's not really congestion. There is some support here, and it did break higher and turn down. And if you wait for this to close, no, I'm not taking that because it looks too sideways. But if you saw the engulfing bar, maybe you enter that hoping to catch the momentum. I might enter that like that as a lower high, being that far away from the EMA when this is obviously played out. And this is probably going to trap some longs looking for a second leg up or something else, and they don't know people that don't know what they're doing. And this thing just rockets down again. So there's you probably another. I doubt you get a runner on this. If you wait till this close, you probably don't take this anyway. And if you let it break lower first, it trades all the way back up and opens here and then turns down. So I'm guessing you'll probably get a runner there as well, depending on how you entered it. Another opportunity to get one anyway. Both of these are a little aggressive, so most of you are probably not going to take those trades. And then there's this news item here on the PMI. This PMI is closely related to the economy and how well the economy is doing and manufacturing and companies and their hiring and so forth. It's closely related to how the inflation is and things like that, and just how the economy's doing overall, I think. So with that, the way these have been going off lately, I'd probably tell you to stay flat, which would probably be a good idea. And you can see that we had the trend down, you had a break, new low, and it rockets up, and this really takes off, right? So there's no entry there, and I'd probably be flat. I mean, if you didn't get flat here, if you were short, you would have got really burned real fast, because I mean that whole bar is like it opened at 8:45 or 10, or I'm not sure if that's when it closes or not. I mean, and 8 seconds later we're way up here, but you can see that's about an 8-second bar, regardless of whether that's the opening or the close. So anyway, it happened real quickly. So I'd be flat there, and it looks like it settled down pretty quickly once it reached the overnight highs here. You can see it didn't even quite get to the highs again. Then it makes a lower, and look how far away we are from the EMA. That lower high, I like to take that. That's a second entry short too. Technically it's not if you count from the lows, but it's basically it's just a lower high. I don't want to get too convoluted here. I just treat that as a lower high. Nice signal bar, way away from the EMA. We come back here and get a double top, but the signal bar is not good enough. And we make that next leg down. There's actually 2 legs down there. And this one's pretty bearish before it bounces. And you actually have a trend working down here, and you get a close outside, move to a new low, and then you got one working up. I don't think I would go long here on this. But this comes up and gives you a triple test. You can see across there. We try to test it once, twice, 3 times. I like that as a triple test, just to ride it back to the EMA. And that's probably all you'd have got out of it, so because it does come back pretty quickly. Lower high here, but not anything you want to trade. So that's an inside bar. Just skip those. This drops on down pretty good and finally bounces. It's near the midline there, and you get a first entry and then a second entry, and that pretty much confirms the key entry point and relatively bearish bar. I like going short there. That drops down. Now you get a close outside, and there is a first entry and then second entry here, but there's no break of this. That's a pretty extended micro channel, so I would wait on a lower high or second entry or something, and you just don't get it. Yeah, you could call that a lower high. You could call that actually a failure, because I think that's before it turns lower. So you could actually, no, actually there's a higher low right there. I don't even think you could look at that as a failure. I wouldn't take that trade regardless. It just doesn't set up very well. We drop on down, bounce, and we finally chop out of there. Now there is some sideways here, and you're just kind of chopping up, but you can't go long in here, even though this is kind of rallying higher. You just have to kind of let this one go. I don't see any other long setups here either until you finally get a close outside, a couple of swings up, and then a lower high. There's also a triple test across there, so this breaks higher and turns down. I'd wait for this one to close most likely. So you may take that, and somebody will say, but everything's above the EMA here. But notice that there's no break of this. You got this channel coming down with a break, and it looks like you get a new low, but when it keeps going like that, there's probably another channel, and so that's the first break of that channel. So you're looking for prices to go lower here. So I like this as a triple test. Again, I don't know that I enter that on an engulfing bar. Maybe you do. I think it's a little risky. I marked it green either way because it's close to the EMA. But in this case, we're probably going to try to make a new low. Or you would think we'd try to make a new low. Prices are going to attempt it. And notice we did come back through the midline, so they're probably going to at least come back and test that. And the better play is to wait on this failure here. Notice this is basically just a new high, first entry, second entry. I like going short there. And you do got to close a new low, and then it rockets back up and gets back above the midline, and that's not a good sign if we're going lower. So there's a good chance now we're probably headed back up to test this high up here. The prices are probably going to tempt it. And you can see we come up and we're just kind of chopping around. Notice this one work. This micro channel comes up, you get a close outside, and you get a new high. You get a lower high here, but that's too congested. It looks like a little congestion area, and you see it does fail, and then you get a higher low. I like going long there. just to see if you get another leg up. And it actually comes back and gives you a failure here. The entry is one tick above this bar, but your stop has to go below this bar because that makes the swing low. So make sure you understand that. This is technically uh, the low point, so that's where your stop has to go. But this is technically your signal bar. Normally we wouldn't enter on an inside bar, but when it's a failure, it's probably going to rocket on up. And it does. And you actually get a triple test there, but no setup. Nothing to go long. Comes in. We're just working sideways here now. Um, you get a failed break here, and it is lower than that last high. This one is tempting, and you might enter that. I probably should have marked that green. The problem is it doesn't make an equal high, so it's really an inside bar, and they're always so unreliable. And that's, I mean, but there is a triple test there. But that's why I didn't mark that one. I mean, you notice there's a little lower high. Um, that far away from the EMA, take a judgment call, and if you think it's going lower, it may be one you fudge the rules a little bit on. So, but it's it would be a judgment call, and I think it's risky. So I didn't mark it, but I'll just put that green there because if you thought you wanted to take it. And we're just back. We bounce here. I draw this trend line here and see what comes of it, and then we're just chopping sideways, and we fail on the breakout. I don't see anything you can take here. This one, you better be careful and wait on a lower high because it rocketed so high up and it's higher than any of these other highs. And you can see it does try to go higher. It gives you two more legs up, but there's no setup here because this is your signal bar. And it drops back in and then finally breaks out. But I don't see anything to go long there. Too much congestion here. We just came off the highs, and if you draw that off those two lows, you see that it fits up there, and this pretty much confirms it. There is a second entry here, but I don't like that signal bar. You get a higher low here, but now there's just too many stems there. It ends up working higher. Maybe you take this trade as a failure. This is a double bottom, so first entry, second entry. If it breaks higher, there's a failure there, and so that's one you might trade if you see that setup. But the problem is we just came off this high, but you can see we tested that a couple times, and now we're testing the EMA a couple times, so there's reasons to consider that. It's a little more advanced. Most of you probably need to stay away from it, but if you've been trading and you're experienced and advanced enough with your chart reading and understand what's going on there, maybe you take that trade. We turn back down here off the highs. You get a couple of legs down. It's pushing through the EMA, pulls back, pushes down again, comes back. This thing wants to go higher, but it just can't. There is a second entry short right there, but that signal bar is not good enough. This one is really tempting here because this should have taken on off after bouncing off that trend line that many times, and it suddenly breaks higher right there and turns and gives you that bearish bar. I didn't mark it. It's one you might take, and you might take it on the engulfing bar because that gives you plenty of room back to the trend line in case it does bounce again, but you can see it just drops straight through. It actually tries to go higher a couple of times and drops down again, and it is right off the key entry point. The problem is that you want that to be back here. It looks a little sideways, congested. I just sit tight. And then of course, now you got your break of the green channel. You expect a retest of the highs. And notice we finally find some support here. You get a close outside, move to a new low, then you get a higher low, which is a triple test. I like going long, just try to get a scalp out of that. It actually comes back again and goes higher again. You could probably enter there too. I think I'd be less apt to enter there because you really think it would take off there, and when it doesn't, it looks a little congested, and it's not rejection. So it's a little risky to continue to try to get long there because this thing's making lower highs. So if I didn't enter here, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't enter here, but it does break lower and turn up again. So anyway, it has to really fight, but it pushes forward. And then you get another triple test here, and also it's a second entry long. So I like going long right there. As long as you got room to here, it doesn't matter, it just keeps going. So it turns out to be a pretty good trade. And that's a double bottom, so you get a first entry, second entry. That's a failure, and you get another second entry long right here too. So that's a failed second entry short and a second entry long, and it looks like prices are probably going to go try to make retest this high now on this green channel, and off it goes. Still chops around and struggles, but it continues to go up. Look how far we're staying away from the EMA. That's a sign that you have a strong trend. And once you made that new high on that shoot real high right there, this actually starts to look like a different pattern. And normally I don't draw a trend line, but here what you might do is say, okay, something else is going on here. Let's draw this trend. This looks like a spike in channel. There's just no other way to describe it. It's like the retest played out and we went into another channel. And so you might mark that channel, and if you recognize what's going on here, it's a really strong trend. Then notice none of the corrections are not very deep, and so there's some opportunity there to trade those. And there's really a first break, there's a second entry there. It's getting really late in the day, so you better know what you're doing. But you probably could have taken any of these right off the trend line right there, especially the one that came back to the EMA. So there's a couple more possibilities there. And notice you didn't make a new high here either before it trended lower. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. It just looks like a range day here for the most part, but it did have late afternoon, did have some late afternoon momentum before it gave some of that back and closed inside the range. So it's really hard. As bullish as it looks on the daily chart, it's really hard for me to say this is anything but a range day. Just looking at this chart, it's a range day with that closed on a tie. Basically, is how I would describe it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll see what tomorrow brings. We'll come back tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get a good trend going in one direction or the other, and get a chance to make some money. There's not a lot of trades today. There's trades here. This kind of trading is difficult. You got to find these trends. You got to be able to figure out the micro trends and spot those. Otherwise, it's fairly hard trading, because it just turns on you on a dime, and then it's turning back, and then it chops sideways. You get these rockets moves in one direction or another, and then it just kind of chops around, but it keeps working higher. And so it's not an easy day to trade. So if you struggle on these days, don't worry, because these are hard days even for somebody that's a good chart reader, because you can get whipsawed and you can make a mistake and the market can fool you. As you get more experience, it'll get easier, but it's still not an easy day to trade. So if you're struggling on days like this, don't worry about it if you're new to this and you're learning, because these are hard days to trade for anybody. And so don't let it discourage you. And if you need to, especially if you're trying to trade live, which you shouldn't be if you're not profitable yet, but nobody ever listens to me until it's too late usually, and they come back the second time and try to do it right. But if you're trading live, just skip these days. You'll be better off. I mean, if the market's trending and you're buying with the trend and it's a strong trend, you can make mistakes and still come out okay. But when it's choppy and mixed trading like this, and you make mistakes, you're probably going to get burned, because there's just, I mean, it can turn on a dime. And I mean, what's really frustrating is when the market's working higher in here and then just suddenly turns. And really what's happening here is just taking that news item back, and it got so negative it took a little more before people kind of gather their wits together and it starts climbing. It just kind of, the market usually resets after these news items. It doesn't always go that much further. Usually it'll come back and bounce around in there, and reset. It'll either continue higher or it'll start trending lower based on what the market probably took from the news item or whatever. But it's usually will take these emotional news item moves back pretty quickly, and you can see it did that today, and then some before it reset and took off to the upside. So keep that in mind. But yeah, if you're struggling with these kind of days, or you have really bad days like this, sim trade them or take the day off. Go do something, take an extra day, just don't try to trade these live if you're struggling with it, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache and you'll save yourself some money. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow I'll bring something a little better that's easier to trade for everybody. But we'll wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.